Hello, so my name is Pavel, and I'm continuous delivery architect at Arch9 IT Services. And I will tell now the story of continuous delivery system that we've created to support the move to microservices and to support the organizational structure that was just described by Mike. It will take about 12 minutes or so. Okay, let's start. Quickly about me. So I have 12 years of experience, and more than half of this time I spent with Arch9. I come from Ukraine, but I also used to live and work in Estonia before joining Arch9 in 2010. A year and a half ago, I moved to Amsterdam to continue my work to help our customers to assess, create, or optimize the way they deliver applications to production. I love cycling, and yeah, I needed to move here to Amsterdam to find this out. I never was thinking of cycling when I was living in Kiev. I also like learning Dutch. Yeah, beautiful language. I like reading articles, news. I like listening to podcasts, watching TV. I don't yet like speaking and communicating to people. It's still a nervous and scary experience for me. But this is my dream, to be able to speak freely and maybe one day deliver a presentation in Dutch. And if you want to help me, spreek Nederlands met mij. Okay, now if I want to talk about the system that we've created, so we wanted to learn from mistakes of the past, from what the foolish approach that happened. And when we transitioned last year in June, yeah, we had a couple ideas in our mind. What did we want to achieve? First of all, we needed to support the growing number of applications. Even before we started, there were 3 applications. And well, with 3 components that you need to start to run your application, you can't do it manually. They depend on each other, but you can communicate, you can tolerate this. Now we have already 14 backend components, more than 20 front-end components. And one of the biggest ideas was how we can make them releasable independently. And how can we make teams not being blocked by each other. This is the first point. But the second point, and this is what also complicates things, there is no production. It might sound simple. Well, no production, yeah, things, yeah, easier. But the problem is that customers are running application in a lot of different configurations. And we need to test and we need to ensure quality in each one of them. And some customers are happy with their Oracle stack or IBM stack, and they want to continue running things like that. But some customers want something newer. They want to run application in the cloud, or maybe run it in a Docker containers. But we need to support all of them with just the same application. And this is what is called dual deployment model. Additionally, we need to increase the pace. So new features need to be delivered and quickly. You can't wait a lot of time. We need to rapidly try things and fail things if they're not working. So the system needs to support this. And also it needed to be automated. You can't create environments manually. You can't heavily rely on manual testing. It needs to be versioned. We can't just add -snapshot to the name of the application and think that it's fine, and then we reach milestone, RC, and finally release. It's no longer working. But probably the most important, the system needs to be clear to everyone. Because if people don't understand how application is built and delivered, they see just their own small part. So we created the system with the 2 main ideas in mind. First one is keep the product releasable. At all time, product must be releasable. And second, build the quality in. And I'm going to expand on these 2 main ideas now. I will start with keeping the product releasable. So this is the pipeline. On one side of the pipeline, you throw in the source code. On the other side of the pipeline, magically, application appears, and, well, things are working. So far, so good. If we put this at the scale of CXP, well, there is a number of backend applications, number of front-end applications, and we integrate and assemble it to the whole CXP. Okay? How do we keep it releasable? So here, imagine these are the versions. Version 7, 15, 27, and 5. And there is a version of assembled CXP, 34. again with inventory 7.15.27.5. We release new version of frontend component 2. The version is assigned 6. We reintegrate it with the whole CXP. The version 35 is released with inventory 7.15.27.6. Then we do the same with another component, and again we release the version 16 of backend component 2. New version of CXP is released. And we do it all the time, every time essentially. This is what we also call the three-stage release process. So again, we don't have production, so we don't have the luxury of a feedback loop from production, how application is performing there. This is why we must integrate it every time. And whenever we are committing to any of the components and releasing the whole CXP, this is what rolling release is happening on every commit. But then, at the end of every iteration, bi-weekly, we release a preview, internal preview. And what we do there, we take the version of CXP, for example, version 37, that consists of version 7, 16, 27, and 7. We rename it, for example, preview 21, and we release it to internal audience. People don't have to use the preview release. They can also use the version 37, the latest version. But some teams want, of course, phased approach. This is preview release. Finally, why we're creating all this for marketing releases? The release that will be available to a wide audience, and people will start installing the application. And it doesn't differ from preview releases. You're doing exactly the same thing. You just put things into a different repository. You send email to a wider audience. Maybe you also open Champagne, but this is it. But we can't release more frequently. For some banks, even 2 times a year is just fast. It's a rapid pace. So we can't release more frequently. But if we release so infrequently, we can't automate it. We just have no means of testing this and practicing this. We're just not doing this so often. So with the preview releasing, we're practicing marketing releasing every 2 weeks. You can also think of this that in reality, we're practicing marketing releases every commit. So this is, in short, the story how we keep the product releasable. Now about building the quality in, because, well, it looks simple on this picture, but things can go wrong and things actually will go wrong. How do we prevent this? So because where we want to depart from idea that the quality is something that some people will arrange at the end of iteration. You just can't do it otherwise, but make the quality integral part of the software development process. This is what we believe is the only way of managing the quality. And also this means that we can't rely on manual testing, because this is not scalable. There is no time for that. And this is where we came to this idea of a build, test, and release cycle that we repeat over and over again. If we put it on the pipeline, it looks like this. Every pipeline has actually build, test, release cycle. Let's have a look. So first of all, this is essentially build, test, release is a pipeline. It's a whole pipeline. And we store it as code. We store it along with the source code of the application. We can track whole history. We can compare different pipelines between each other. We can reproduce pipeline at any time. On the build stage, what happens? Well, anything that works with the source code. Building, versioning, running unit tests, running some code analysis. And as you've seen, we version things automatically. But there are some things that we version manually, and these are API contracts, database schemas. But the builds, the binaries, they're always automatically versioned. We no longer have snapshot or something. Every new commit produces a new version of the binary. Now we're moving to the most important part, testing. And these are, well, also a sort of tests that we can run. Probably end-to-end tests apply more for the front end and contract tests for the back end. But what is important here is that these tests create the full set of criteria that we need to pass in order to stamp the component. Boom, we assure the quality, we're ready to release it to the whole CXP to wider audience. And these tests should be enough. And of course, each component will have the different set of criteria. Which tests do we run? Which exactly things do we run there? But they should be enough. And these tests can be run in parallel on this stage. What happens when we run the tests? Before we run the test, we create infrastructure. And then after the test, we immediately dispose this. This is what people are calling immutable infrastructure model. We don't have DTAP street. We don't have service that are running there where we deploy. We need to run the test. We create an infrastructure. We run the test. We destroy the infrastructure. In order to create infrastructure, there is a service that we send the REST API call to it. Create infrastructure for us. Be it full-blown CXP, multi-server configuration in the cloud, or maybe just one Docker container to test contracts, or maybe 3 Docker containers that you can run some end-to-end test together. We encourage teams to start the smallest possible combination to do the specific test they need. We don't need to run full application every time, but we can run this at scale. Okay, we can run 10 tests together parallel 100. Team decides. Finally, release is, well, if the test has passed, we put it for everyone. Quickly, let's see how it works. So imagine we've got the versions of the component 7.16, 27.7. Now we commit to the front-end component 1, and the tests have failed. Nothing happens. Everything remains the same. Team is working hard, trying to fix it. They produce another commit, and again, tests are failing. Again, nothing happens beside this. But other teams are not affected. If we commit to backend component 2, new version is produced 17, tests have passed, we release new version 17, and with this we trigger a new version of CXP. We assemble it with a new inventory. Now we, for example, fix the front-end component 1, new version 30 is produced, and then we go to we release this version 30, and we go to the level of CXP, and we produce a version of CXP when the version 30 becomes part of the inventory. And the same process happens on the whole assembled level. Some of the tests must fail, and then this version can't be released. But there is an agreement that we made that, okay, whenever we find the bug on the assemble system, or whenever the tests are failing on the assemble system, we need to find out what went wrong and put the test on the component level. Because the earlier you find the bug, the quicker it is to fix it, the easier it is to fix it, and the cheaper it is to fix it. So we want to find these problems early in the process. We want to put, not only to build the quality into the process, but put it as left as possible. This is what building quality in. Now quickly about the configuration. I think this system is future-proof because, well, different squads can be responsible for different components. We can arrange this responsibility in different matters, and we can add a lot more components, and still things will be working. And whenever somebody is switching squad, the only thing that changed for him or her is, well, the components they're responsible for, the testing criteria that they need to specify, but the process, the build, test, release cycle, and the whole delivery model remains the same, and it is clear to everyone. So yeah, this was the story of 2 main ideas. Keep the product releasable, build the quality in, and yeah, why we do it is just to be able to rapidly and safely develop and deliver CXP. This is it. Thank you. Mike?
Come on stage. Great presentation. We have any questions for our speakers? Yeah, on there.
Hello, Trofimov from Insided. I think it was a very nice presentation. Thank you. It was very high level. Yep. I'm really curious how you do it. Like
buy me a drink, I will explain.
Okay, I think the drinks are in the house anyway, so.
Well, yeah, you see, it's hard to give a lot of technical details in 10 minutes. But then, yeah, just talk to me technical details that are interesting. I'm willing to share. Continuous delivery is my passion, and this is why I started public speaking. I want to share this knowledge. I want to share ideas with wider audience. So I really like to speak about this. Ask me.
Over there.
Back there.
Yeah, hi. You mentioned friend George, and he has a nice presentation about Object Bootcamp. So I was curious whether you apply some other principles from his Object Bootcamp, because I was rather intrigued by that presentation that I saw.
Possibly. Possibly. If I would say yes or no, I would be trying to fool you and lie to you. If we had some of our senior engineers or architects here, they could certainly answer it. I don't know. Has Pavan made his way here by any chance? Pavan, hi friend. Could you maybe help? I just don't know. I mean, I'm good at some stuff and bad at others, and this stuff I'm bad at. But we have skilled people that are real good at this.
And Mike said earlier, we were inspired by what he said, not entirely everything is good. So there were some parts of the bootcamp we took part, we were interested in how actually vendors for microservices are, and that's when we were coming from a quality applications, and we wanted to know how small an application can be. And that was the starting point. That was our basis. CSPR architecture, where we can break things down in a small. I don't know if I answered it, but
Thank you, Pavan.
Gentleman there.
Yeah, you showed several squads working on a specific pipeline,
Yep.
but they were never overlapping, right? I mean, every version is always separate. Is that that is the normal case of working?
You're asking if versions separate for each pipeline?
No, if multiple teams, multiple squads work on the same component on the same version.
No, they don't. So each squad has their own components. This is their own ownership, their own responsibility. This ownership is never shared. Otherwise, this ownership is lost if you're sharing it with somebody.
But Mike said something about component.
Yep.
Component owners? Yeah.
Yep.
But if you have a whole squad specifically dedicated to a component, why have a component owner then? Right? Because the whole squad is dedicated at that point in time.
Well, you need a flag bearer. You need somebody I say wakes up with it and goes to sleep with it. It's not a component owner in a sense that he or she is the only person that does anything with it, but is the one that's responsible for shining the flashlight in the dark corners to make sure that they get illuminated and people know what they need to do in certain situations. It's also the person that works with other component owners to determine, because there have been situations where we've said, hey, this thing's a bit too large now, or it doesn't fit in the squad anymore. We're gonna chop it up, and this like cell division, it becomes two. So it's very much a thought process that if we've identified a particular component in the architecture, there must be an owner, and it must fit in a squad. If we don't meet those two criteria, we need to do something. And the first one is maybe easier than the second. Sometimes it leads to division of one into multiples. I mean, if we would be here in another 3 months, the number of components will have grown. Where and why, I just don't know yet.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
We have one more over there.
Can I have another one? Another two? This time it's about organizational things. Like you mentioned, you fly people from Amsterdam, Kiev, and back. So the first question, how often? And in terms of budget, how much money you spent on it compared to the whole development budget? And the second question is about having blended squads versus autonomous squads on the remote boundary. So why did you choose for that?
First one, it depends. But I think a good rule of thumb is a squad is going to be with each other, either in Amsterdam or in Kiev, about every 3 months. Yeah. And if you have like 7 or 8, you're sort of always having a rotation going on there. I'd need to tap into some system to figure out which percentage of the money we spend on this travel and lodging is our development budget. I actually see it more as an investment than a cost. So I look more regularly at how much we spend on Apples and Dell machines than I do at how much we spend on this. So I can find out, but I don't have it readily available because And now I think the second one was about blended versus. Yeah, well, to some degree that was a model we had when we started because, like I said in my presentation, we did have one sort of big top-down decision, and that was we're going to start like this. It had very much to do with experience and skill set that we had in our current population at that time. I think there's value to be had in it. There's some drawbacks also. I mean, you need to promote this travel to make sure that the teams stay aligned with each other. But having done that, the risk that you get the we against them type of thinking is much lower. And you also have multiple options. Let's say that we have 2 people in Kiev in a particular squad. It's easier for them to move into other squads than if components A through L were covered in Amsterdam, and M through Z in Kiev. It makes it more difficult to switch people. I guess you could be effective with both, but I think both have their pluses and minuses. You're welcome.
One over there. Oh, sorry.
May I?
Sure.
That one here.
Hi. You mentioned component owners and squads. How do you ensure that the component owners talk to each other and align so that they still keep focus on your end product?
We have this role that didn't come out very much in the talk. It's called a platform architect. And you could see him as the super component owner, and he regularly gathers them together, takes them aside, they have a sandwich, and they talk about the particular things that they need to align on. And some things come out of the area that Pavel talked about. Say, look, it looks like we're having too much problems here with the quality in the build pipelines the past couple of weeks here. Do we need to do anything here? But there is sort of like the super component owner guy, architect, and he's one of the elders that take care of the whole tribe, along with the agile coach, as well as somebody we call a product manager.
Thank you.
One over there.
You're Herman, right?
Oops, sorry. Mike, first of all, congratulations. I'm the former R&D manager from Backbase, so I think it's very cool to see what's happening over there. So well done.
Well, the congratulations belong to others.
Yeah.
Maya, Pavel, and at least 80 other people. I just get coffee.
Yes, that's our job, right?
Yeah.
My question is a bit similar to the previous one. You organize in components. It's always a big discussion. Do you organize your team in components or feature-based, right? So I was wondering, how does the product owner come into play, and how do you sort of design the bigger requirements, because they will impact multiple components.
Sure.
So there's a big challenge, I think, to split up over the right components, which components are involved or not, and how do you sort of orchestrate then the delivery of that bigger feature to a final version?
I won't say it's vanilla or out of the box, but there's a lot of familiar stuff there. Epic stories that get caught up in the stories, that get caught up in maybe into minis, determining the dependencies on particular components to deliver that story, and then mapping those to where that's going to need to be delivered to squads. And this type of view then gets brought into life when you start talking about backlog grooming, so that when you get to a planning session, you're able to answer the question, if all of these squads do all of that, as we currently see, do we have something that's potentially shippable or deliverable? You do need more upfront thinking. If you just have one team or squad that's just consuming a backlog, that tends to be quite, well, not simple, but it's less complex. The more squads you have consuming at a higher level the same backlog, the more forward thinking you need to do to get them to a point. And now I see Maya, our agile coach, that's going to help us here.
I just want to add that we have also a tribe planning where we define the upcoming goals for a couple of sprints, and our teams could do a multiple team planning, so they can gather together and define some requirements and prepare acceptance criteria for some stories and epics.
I'm fine.
Thank you, Maya.
Okay, we don't have further questions, I think. I don't see any. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for
this
your
inspiring
attention.
story.
Well done, man.
Thank you.